Mr. President, take the reins because you've got bigger problems building than just the treachery of Dr. Fauci that so far you are apparently publicly, anyway, not ready to admit. Mr. President, if you can't see that Dr. Fauci is part of the deep state, if you can't see that he purposely has changed his position on the seriousness of the coronavirus, which he said just back in January and February, no big deal. Now all of a sudden, it's this life-threatening, life-altering, life-changing. We have got to change our entire way of life in the United States. We've got to have a vaccine. We've got to stay shut down till November. And by the way, Mr. President, if you had acted sooner, lives would have been spared. That's the cutthroat guy you've got working for you. He's not for you. He's not for the American people. He is driving the agenda of Big Pharma. He is driving the agenda of Bill Gates, who is near orgasmic climax, wanting to be able to microchip the population. Mr. President, you are in shark-infested waters. These people are not your friends. And I understand what some are trying to say, that because the economy was artificially shut down, we turned it off, that as soon as we turn it back on, it will just come roaring back to life. Great theory. Don't see it happening. We're already seeing businesses making it abundantly clear, even when this is over, they won't be back. They're done. Done. Mr. President, your enemies are taking you out. And now is the time not to listen to these so-called medical experts. The time is now for you to stand up, acknowledge that you listened to the wrong people, and take the reins. You need to lead, because your next coming war is not just with the media and Dr. Fauci. It's with these rogue governors that you have allowed to operate independently and be their own little would-be czars and dictators. We have governors threatening the constitutional rights of the freedom of assembly to public places of worship. Really? They don't have jurisdiction over a church having an Easter service or not. We have in Mississippi the mayor of Greenville, Mississippi, rolling in on churches having drive-in services, rolling in there with SWAT teams. In Kentucky, you have the governor of Kentucky dispersing law enforcement officials to churches that had Easter services, taking down their license plate numbers, turning them into the health department, only to have a health official on their doorstep telling them that because they went to church, they are now mandatory quarantine for 14 days. We have a constitution. We have rights. And these rogue little dictatorial governors, and it started with DeWine in Ohio, and then Newsom over in California picked up on it, and then it was monkey see, monkey do, and we were off to the races. Which governor could take the most constitutional control and authority away from we the people? And Mr. President, I'm sorry, you have sat by and watched this. There is some light at the end of the tunnel. You have been signaling you want to reopen the government. Woohoo! Or I should say reopen the country. But you promised us that for Easter. And yet, well, we got to get a couple more weeks. Now, we see the whole plan coming to be. Here's where we're at. You got Fauci, the deep state. No, they didn't create the coronavirus. The coronavirus is real. Yes, it's contagious. Is it deadly? No. Only to people with high extreme health risks. But what they've done by their overemphasis and magnifying and cooking the books and literally lying about how many people are dying, they have managed to turn a string of the flu into an end-of-the-world contagion plague. And the media is happy to play along. couple of weeks ago, Nancy Botox Pelosi hinted at this was the next phase of the impeachment of Donald Trump. He didn't act fast enough, and his inaction cost lives. And now Fauci is saying the same thing. And Fauci has the president convinced, if you don't listen to what I say, Mr. President, if you open the country up too quickly, I'm telling you, all the deaths that happen thereafter will be blamed on you. Mr. President, worry less about your presidency. We got your back on that. We'll take care of you. We'll reelect you. Do the right thing for the American people. Kick Fauci to the curb. Reopen the country now. Because if you don't, Cuomo will. Because that's the next phase of what's going on here. See, the Democrats want to use coronavirus as a way to defeat the president, stop him, roll out another fake impeachment. They know that Joe Biden can't be dragged across the finish line. He is Alzheimer Joe. So and you're only going to hear this here, Rush Limbaugh today trying to take a victory lap saying, I'm the only one that's been saying the coronavirus was this and that, and I'm the only one that's been saying that we need to open up the gut. You're not the only one, Rush. In fact, you weren't the first one. Some of us said it never should have been shut down. Rush, you were one of the ones that was saying that, well, this economy will come roaring back. We just got to give it a couple of weeks. Pfft. We've been lied to. We've been lied to. On the one hand, I want to believe that the president was lied to and he acted on bad information, but I also know that the president, who is pragmatic, decided to run with the lie for his own benefit, which was to get through a stimulus package, to fund some things that he wanted to get done. There's no end to this. Now I know the president, I do believe he's figured it out that he's getting some really bad counsel, some really bad advice, and he wants out. But he doesn't quite know how to roll this back without the media and the Democrats using this as to impanel he's killing people. But there is light at the end of the tunnel because the Democrats know they can't get Dementia Joe elected. So Bernie Sanders drops out, but he hasn't ended his campaign. He has suspended it. He is still on the ballot. He is still accumulating votes, which means he's accumulating delegates. This is being designed to go to the Democratic convention. Sanders will give his delegates to Andrew Cuomo, who will then pick up super delegates and be the party nominee. How do I know that? Look what Cuomo did today. He gathered with all the governors of the Northeast. And what did he announce? We are putting a plan in place to reopen the Northeast. Now, he did say it's going to take weeks. We got to work with medical experts and business experts. We have to work together. You know, he's trying to build some socialism into the reopening of the Northeast. But what he wants to be able to do is grab the headline so that he can campaign on he opened the country before Trump. That's what he's running on. He opened the country before Trump. These rogue little dictatorial governors. Now, right now, Cuomo can't even get on the same page with de Blasio about when to reopen or if to reopen New York City and their schools. De Blasio wants them shut down permanently because at the very heart of everything, de Blasio is a socialist. Cuomo is a radical. He's a libloon. He's a child murderer in his absolutely radical abortion views. He's anti-Second Amendment. But he's also, he's capitalist. He like his money. And he knows that the economy's got to go back to work. And he also knows this is a way for him to steal a position from Donald Trump. This is why, President Trump, you have got to immediately open up the country. And by executive order, you have got to rule that these governors cannot keep acting independently, doing their own thing. George Wallace. Huh? George Wallace. Remember when George Wallace stood in front of the school saying that no Negro kid was going to go to school here and he wouldn't be pushed around by Washington, D.C.? We didn't tolerate it then. We desegregated the schools because the states were refusing to do it. Mr. President, this is your George Wallace moment. You're going to have to tell Governor DeWine, no, you don't have weeks to reopen the state of Ohio. You're going to do it now. No, Mario. No, Andrew. You're going to open now. Enough. Because, Mr. President, I'm telling you, it's not just that these businesses won't be back. Your presidency is cooked if you keep allowing Dr. Fauci to set the timeline. And if you allow these rogue governors to act as independent little wannabe dictators. You can't allow this to go any further. Enough is enough is enough. Stand up. We got your back on this. This will rally the country to you. Put them back to work and let life return to normal. I am far too young to look at a kid and say, hey, you know how old I am? I remember when we used to be able to eat inside the McDonald's, not just in our car. Really? You from the olden days? Doesn't it kind of feel like that? Doesn't it feel like forever ago you went to a ball game, went to a concert, were allowed to go to the park, that your kids were actually allowed to go to a park and get on a swing set? We have swallowed socialism. We have swallowed martial law, hook, line, and sinker. Over what? The flu. The numbers all reveal it now. This has never been anything what they predicted it would be. And the only reason you focus on it now, big headline on faux pas news, formerly known as Fox News, 1 dead in, where is it, South Dakota? Oh my God, Corona death finally gets to South Dakota. It shut everything down. Now the other headlines. There's 100 people that got over it, that they've got it again. And everybody's right away goes back into fear and panic. You know how many times in a cold and flu season my daughter gets strep throat in the same year, the same season? I got a daughter who seems to get it every other week. She gets it, she gets over it, they put her on the Z-Pack, she's fine for a couple weeks, gets it again. I'm sure some of you have had the flu more than once in the same year. But oh no, somebody got the coronavirus twice, and they want to make it sound like it's the end of the world. You're going to die! The way they talk, there should be dead bodies lying in the street. Why, to leave our house and get to our car, we should be stepping over corpses. That's the way the media's portraying this. That's the way these health experts, who are nothing but a bunch of globalist nerds who nobody's ever taken serious in their lives, now all of a sudden they are dictating to governors and to the very president himself. If you don't understand that this is a total and complete power grab, a changing of your way of life, and Mr. President, these governors cannot be independent worlds unto themselves. Mark it down. Andrew Cuomo talking about reopening the Northeast, that is his declaration. He wants to be president. And he wants to be able to tell the American people that he opened up the economy before President Trump. By the way, I'm the only one saying that. Well, until Rush or Glenn Beck or Sean Hannity or any of the other knockoff wannabes try to steal and say they were the first ones to warn us what Cuomo was up to, remember, you heard it here first. Spread the word. Tell other people about this channel. Make sure you smack the bell for notification of my rants. You gotta click the word all, or YouTube won't even tell you that I'm still alive.